We are live.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, my lovelies. Welcome back to another episode of Unprinted Pages with the wonderful authors from Water Tower Hill Publishing. We are having this very special episode. I am CNA Friday at the newest CNA at Lynchhurst Hospital. We are going to take you on a tour of the stories that these beautiful people have written and see what horrors you might be able to find by opening up this gorgeous book. Welcome, Josh, Heather, Joe, Mur, Lex, and Susan. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you.
My
Thank
first
you.
question is...
We will be.
Oh, yeah.
It is to calm down.
You guys are doing 13 books at different places, if my understanding is right. We are on our second of 3. And how did you decide to do these story collections? Is my first question.
All Heather. Okay. I grew up reading horror anthologies, like old school Victorian story anthologies. Most that's like my favorite thing. I just got it in my head that I wanted to do my own, and possibly make mine sort of stand out from all the rest. And I had a crazy idea to make it individual stories by different authors, but all set in the same place, so that you get a location that has sort of a combined history that these authors build together as they write these stories that cover, 200 years of happenings in this place. And so, of course, the first one we did was House of Haunts, which took place at Hale House. And then this one is Hospital of Haunts, which takes place at Lynchhurst Hospital. And then the next one, which we're just starting to work on, the Hotel of Haunts, which takes place at the Hotel Ethel.
The
Hotel Ethel.
Did you all get to read the stories as they were being written as to how you got made everything entwine, or did you have certain criteria of people or places or things that need to be added?
Yeah, that sounds like another one I'm gonna have to answer to. Well, so Heather's brainchild started with house, and she knew she wanted one house, and she kind of like made a list of
rooms in that house, and just it was all by invitation only at the beginning, and each author got to pick a room, and then create a story. And then it was actually Heather as the curator when she got the first manuscripts in to try to interweave them back all together. And so she sent back edits to all the authors and asked them to put in little Easter eggs and stuff throughout it. You know, if your room butted up against another room and there was a knocking or something, maybe mention it in yours. And then hospital got a little bit bigger because, of course, it's an entire hospital over a couple hundred years. So as we were brainstorming on how to put that one together, we know a lot of medical people, and house was divided up into floors and then the grounds. And we didn't really know how to divide up hospital because we didn't know if it'd be a 23-story hospital or what. So they went with the how like if you go to the ER, you're put into different triage colors depending on your problems. So we divided it up that way, and everybody got a ward in the hospital. So 23 wards, and everybody wrote stories. And she did the same thing that she did with House. She interwove them all together in editing, and and we put in floor plans, which we did in House, and we put it in hospital. And I think we got this thing down pretty well now, going into our third one next year. Again, it's still by invitation only, and it's a tour guide through Lynchhurst or Hell House or Hotel Ethel.
That is amazing. So, I think I have like different questions for each of you. So I'm going to go through the list and just ask each person. Heather, you're a beautiful nurse.
Mm-hmm.
Where were there like nurses in history that you came across, or did you model her off of one specific person you know?
No. I mean, unless you want to say she's modeled after me, if I had no morals or inhibitions of any kind. She's just, I mean, everybody knows about, nurses who are like angels of mercy, and they kill people, and they think that they're doing good somehow in their minds. It's twisted up like that. So that's kind of how she justifies what she ends up doing in my story, which is the last story. But no, I mean, creepy nurses have always been a thing, in all kinds of stories. And I wanted her to not look like the kind of nurse that would go around killing people. I wanted her to just be pretty and young and somebody that, everybody would trust and love. And then secretly she's walking around at night murdering people.
As one does.
As one does.
As one does. Luckily, my favorite nurse doesn't have inhibitions quite like that. She has helped me through school. But yeah, that is... Yes, I can say honestly, having her the way you have in the book is worth the fear. And Josh, your game.
Oh yeah. I wanted, because I wrote a very serious, like, Civil War historical story for House. I wanted my story in hospital to be like the funny one, and I challenged myself to use specific words or lines, and I wanted to use the line, Debbie, your tits hanging out, put it back in. And so I was trying to figure out how to do that and make it funny. And I thought, and I got the cancer ward, and I think the reason I wanted to make it funny is because my father passed away of cancer when I was 8. And at this point now, this many years later, you can kind of like, I don't know, sort of laugh about it. But yeah, I had a guy die, and right after the Civil War, and had that real kind of Kentucky regular super Southern drawl. And another guy died and decided to stick around, and he asked if you wanted to play poker. And so I just had this idea for like ghosts through the whole 200 years of the cancer ward. Some stick around and they start playing poker, and they bet on who around them is going to die next. So yeah, I wanted it to be funny though. So that's,
yeah, I would like to point out that Josh has used that line. What is it? Put your,
hey Debbie, your tits hanging out.
Yeah, put it back.
We've seen it. We've seen it. Put it back in.
I've had to hear that line. In fact, we went to dinner not a few hours ago. We were at Buffalo Wild Wings watching the football game, and this guy came up and was standing next to me, having like this muscle shirt that was cut real low, so you could kind of see, his chest. And
so I said, "Hey Debbie, I was
like, hey,
your tits hanging out."
So yeah, I've had to hear that line a lot. Yeah,
I can understand that. My husband has a couple lines that he keeps repeating.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Joe, you have given me a fear I did not have before. My youngest my oldest girl, has told me about her and her girlfriend and so on, and then I read your story, and I have never had that fear with a medical professional before. How?
You're welcome.
And how did you come up with this idea?
I was afraid you would ask me that. Honestly, I just said it. It was set in 1981, and I thought about, that was when the AIDS crisis started, and these two young gay people that were in love, driving through where was it? West Virginia.
Virginia.
Yes, sorry, my brain went. And what prejudice they would face, and as it turns out, there's these evil people in the emergency room that are doing bad things to people whose lifestyles they don't agree with. And I guess I won't say anything more than that because I don't want to spoil the story for anybody.
I don't either, but that I didn't know I could have that fear.
Well, if I've installed a new fear in somebody, I've succeeded.
Yes. As parents of the LGBTQ, or if you are of the LGBTQ and you read his Joe Derone story, I'm having trouble remembering titles. I remember the names and what happened. That is, and the titles are escaping me, and I apologize, guys.
I think mine's called Stronger Connections.
Yes. And so please, if you want a new fear, and definitely check out his. I'd recommend checking out the whole book. Seriously, I'm gonna go through and finish putting up my reviews up later. So far, I've got the first one up, and then I need to finish putting up the story reviews to catch everybody's attention, because my goal is hopefully to tag you all.
I did want to say real quick. Sorry, is that okay?
Go right ahead.
Yeah, I liked Heather's idea of connecting all the stories, and when she asked me to put the grackles in there, it opened up some ideas that I had. So I was grateful for that. I think it all worked out really well.
Yeah, I love the grackle part.
Gage Greenwood put grackles in his story.
Yep.
He has a story called, not in this, but his own story called Grackles on the Feeder, I want to say. And so, but we have grackles here in Oklahoma, like they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And Josh didn't know what they were at first when he first came here. He was like, "What are these?" I was like, "They're grackles." And so when I saw that Gage had put one in his story, I was like, "We should have them everywhere," because they're like, I like to call them the hillbilly cousins of crows and ravens.
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah, we have this one always following us around. He's outside the window right now. He's outside
our window all the time.
And we're pretty sure he's one of our dead loved ones. So.
You never know.
No idea. I had never actually thought of grackle birds. before. So
that's something new to Stereo now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They really do look like the methed out cousin of like a large raven. They really do. Like they're stringy. They eat everything. They're the craziest, weirdest bird. Now everybody that sees this will be like, "What the hell's a crackle?" And they're gonna have to go look up a crackle.
Grackles are going to have a huge upswing in popularity.
Yeah. Hashtag grackle.
Hashtag grackle.
Okay.
They're beautiful.
And that one right there happens to be a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Sorry.
Great. Go ahead. I have no problem. We have more than enough time to fill with anything you want to say about your story. Is there anything you want to add, guys, about your story so far, you three?
No, I want everybody else to talk.
Okay.
Especially her. He loves to talk in groups.
Yeah, I do. I love it.
Just that everybody should be reading them.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Okay, Myrrh, my friend Raz and I have been talking about urban exploring and different places he had went, and he had recently wrote a story that has gotten published. And when I found another person has written a story about urban exploring, I was so happy. I just didn't expect to find one in the hospital, but that does make sense. People would go to abandoned hospitals. Your story has new nightmares. And I'm I'm trying to figure out how to put it without adding spoilers. How did you decide this should be the source?
I'm sorry, I missed what you said there just a second ago.
I was asking how you decided in the notes that should be the source and how people found it out as they worked at the hospital.
I don't know. It's kind of like I like the records room thing was the first room I thought about, because I thought that just sounded like, all the information is there. Every piece of information is like a ghost in itself. I mean, everyone, even personal things, everything's personal. People's personal details with their bodies, procedures. But then when you think about when hospitals are shut down, and this always kind of creeps me out. You're thinking about and I actually did with one of my friends a long time ago. We actually kind of broke into an abandoned mental hospital. That was in, and Heather and Josh may know this. It was the one in Sand Springs called Hissam.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and and it was a really scandalous place. It was for disabled children, and there was a lot of scandal with them and everything. I think they finally tore it down a few years ago, but we went messing around in there, and it was amazing to me and horrifying that all the stuff was still in there. I mean, they still had a morgue in there, and they still had filing cabinets full of documents just spilling out everywhere. And it's like, I mean, stuff that's personal and confidential. And I got to thinking, what if there were other things hidden in there that weren't necessarily so mundane, like, not just, records of procedures, but, occult practices and eldritch horror. And that's the thing that's what made me come to mind, is think about the whole hospital is rooted by the information that's kind of been tucked away in the records room. It's definitely not a typical ghost, it's not like there's like a ghost floating around in the records room itself, but there's like a million little ghosts on, in each word. That's what appealed to me about that.
Jen, I'll give you a little bit of background really fast. So Murr's local to us. He's a good friend. His whole family's really good friends of ours. And he told us after House, he didn't want to be in the hospital, or you didn't have time or something. And so we went and had dinner together, and I kind of like, come on, buddy, like, just give us the story. Like, we love your stories and stuff. And he finally relented and sent his before anybody else sent any of the other ones. So Murr actually gave us a lot of the foundation.
A lot of the stuff that I asked other people to put into their stories came from Murr's story.
Yeah. And he had a lot. Who did the line?
In fact, I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but the extra secret story that is only in the limited edition plays off of a phrase that came from Mer's story.
You can say the phrase. It's on the cover. Or it's on the limited
Until
edition.
the fire?
Until the fire.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, Mur wrote that at the end of like 4 or 5 of his small little medical records, Until the Fire, Until the Fire. So, yeah, if you buy the limited edition version, you get a secret additional story, and it tells what that means.
I have been trying to figure out how to get that, get the money for that. And yeah, because I want it.
We're still waiting for the first batch to come in because I want to do a whole video and show everybody. Susan is our in-house artist. She runs our art department at Water Tower Hill. And she was just, because she has horrible ADHD and can't sleep very much, I think, and always has to have a million things going. She just sends stuff to me. She's like, what about this cover? And I'm like, when the hell did you put this together? And so she made a very special piece of art for the limited edition cover. And I can't wait to show that
I can't
off.
wait to see it and have it in our hands. We're still waiting for them.
You said we didn't have time. Challenge accepted.
Yeah. Yeah, I told her. I was like, no, don't worry about that. We don't have time. I need to get this going. And literally like the next morning, and I was like, did you sleep last night? She sends me this whole thing. And I'm like, great, damn, that's awesome. Oh.
Yeah, she's epic.
Oh, she's definitely epic. We did 18 books together already. So.
Wow.
Oh, that rocks.
Yeah. And I do have to give a shout out to Christy Aldridge. Designs our HOH covers, and then Susan does all the everything else.
That's a confusing thing to say.
Well, she makes the wraps, and she does all the.
Let me just explain a little bit. Christy designed the cover for the first one before Josh and I even met. When I was first thinking about doing this book, I asked Christy to do the cover for me because she and I have been friends for years. And so she designs the image that's the whole front cover, and then Susan takes that and does all the cool stuff that goes on the back and the inside flaps and all the just little things that Josh likes to have on all the books that Water Tower Hill does. She's got like his picky specifications down to an art at this point. So
it's not picky specifications; it's professionalism. There's a difference.
So these book covers are kind of a joint effort, Christy and Susan.
Yeah. Okay. Ask Lex about her story now.
Okay, first, Lex, I wanted to say my kid loves the name you picked because her screen name is Majestic Fish. Okay.
Oh.
She chose it herself. So
nice.
Her street name, like her gang name, her street name.
No, her gaming name. Her
gaming name. I thought you said her street name. Like what? Who's roaming the streets with Majestic Fish?
Name. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're ever on Minecraft and you come across Majestic Fish, that's my kid.
If you're ever down by the river under the bridge and you get jumped, Majestic Fish got them.
No, but if she could, she would control a shark.
Down by the river. Sorry.
In a van down by the river.
But anyway, what? Okay, your story is
odd.
Sorry,
it's okay.
No, it's not odd. It makes actual sense. Okay, all the my family is neurodivergent and full of different little mental diagnoses. So it was so easy to picture a bunch of things. And it's like I had those fears that Susan had brought up in hers beforehand because of various things that has happened in my family line. But with yours, I love witches. I love how in your story we find out the little tidbits that have been sprinkled everywhere about that family. Mm-hmm. And how it was put in the different other stories. Like the story from your story comes back later. How did you piece everything together?
Well, I mean, that piecing the stuff together, that is all Heather, because I have a tendency when I write stories, particularly in a shared universe. I guess I was probably one of those kids in elementary school who their teacher wrote doesn't play well with others, always wrote that on my report card, because I just kind of have a way of just kind of going off on my own, which is why I desperately need an editor all the time. But yeah, she was able to say, well, you know, you can add this little thing here that'll tie it to this story, because of course she had read all of them, and you know, just work this kind of thing in here, and then it becomes like a challenging puzzle to me to kind of take those things and figure out a good place to work them in, and how can I make that work. And I love doing stuff like that because that's just kind of how my brain works anyway. But the characters in that story, Susan and I both live in a very small, very rural, very Southern Gothic sort of town, and every crappy little town. Sorry, I almost said a different word. Every crappy
We're
little town.
About 18 and older. You can cuss.
Say whatever you want.
So every shitty little town has this mythic family that, you know, is behind every crappy thing that's ever happened to anybody. You can always trace it back to this one crappy family, and usually by the time they get to modern times, you know, there's like two descendants left, and they have 2 pennies to rub together, and they argue over them. And so the idea of that kind of has always stuck with me, and I like to add little elements to that anyway. But then the really embarrassing thing about me is I like trash TV, and my favorite trash TV show is the Moonshiner Show. And so I love to put like moonshiner folklore into stories. And so that's kind of where that came from. I've written another story about that combines witchcraft, granny witchcraft, and moonshine in a different anthology. So apparently this is a theme that's running through my life right now. I don't know. But yeah, Appalachian folklore is very interesting to me. My husband is a historian who is also from Appalachia. And
Ooh.
So, yeah.
I'm from Appalachia.
Yeah, his great-grandparents were from the mountains in North Georgia. His family lives in his side of the family lives in upstate South Carolina now, and they were very kind of mountain people, and he was very into that kind of, you know, that folklore that comes from the Gaelic. And as a matter of fact, and my husband, you just have to meet him. He's an interesting guy. And I think that the point of view character in my story is kind of loosely based on my husband. That's the kind of way that he talks and everything. But anyhow, so he's very, when he was a kid, he had what they kept diagnosing as a speech impediment. Well, it wasn't so much a speech impediment as he was raised in good part by his great-grandparents, who spoke that Appalachian mixture of English with borrowed Gaelic words and everything. And so he didn't have a speech impediment at all. He just had a really bad Southern accent, and he was speaking Gaelic, like old school Gaelic. So, you know, those kind of little tidbits and things. I love to keep that stuff in mind when I'm writing horror, because that's the kind of horror I like. But anyway.
I
feel like I've been talking forever.
My only other thing before we move on to the amazing Susan story is definitely check out Jessica Rainey's books. Her one series is based on Appalachian horror with all sorts of stuff.
Oh, nice.
That you said you enjoy. So please check her out.
Absolutely.
And
cool.
I'm sorry, I'm not here to plug other friends' books, but that's why I enjoy yours so much. Because I look for that type of stuff. Now I got to find the rest of your stuff. Okay.
Nice.
Well, the rest of my stuff might be really disappointing because the rest of my well, not the rest of my stuff, but a lot of my other stuff is very smutty romance. So
Okay. If you have a pen name, please send it to me and I will look it up. But yeah,
absolutely.
okay. Susan, your nightmares that you have given me, I'm not saying they're bad nightmares or old nightmares. I'm just saying I've had those type of nightmares before. I can literally say I have an uncle that died in an asylum and different family members that were in and out. And Abigail and what her life transpired to be as she went through the story. What started this ball rolling in your story? How you came up with it?
Here. Oh, is she freezing? Oh no, man, that was a funny joke. Did I offend her that bad?
You did. Look what you did, John.
Computer, and she said it's been messing her up all day.
Hi. She's moving again.
It's kind of in slow motion, but at least she's moving.
I think she's catching up. Or not.
I don't
Y'all should get out of that small little town you're in. Maybe it's the internet.
You guys, seriously, we this weekend have been through we have not had the hurricane stuff as bad as Western North Carolina and parts of Georgia and everything. We have not had it as bad, but we have had a lot of power outages and things like that. And so Susan's internet, which is not great at her house because she kind of lives in the sticks, but it's not been great.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm having to switch between two different hotspots in my Wi-Fi because our internet provider here in Chester is terrible. So
she's like,
yeah. So what was the question again?
Okay. Your beautiful nightmares in your story. What got the idea of her ending nightmares rolling?
So part of it is that I overthink about everything. My family is
Me too.
It is a mixed bag of mental illnesses. It really is. And having grown up in the Low Country of South Carolina, I've always been really fascinated by the local folklore and mythology in the area, particularly the older magical style religions, which dealing with the ghost that's in that story, that's kind of where he came from. And it really, it's with the story being set in the early 1940s, women really were property back then. They didn't have rights like we do now. They didn't have the ability to stand up for themselves. And the easiest way for a man with dirty hands to get what he wants is, to lock his wealthy wife away. So he made her think she was crazy. She thought she was crazy. Everybody around her thought she was crazy. But in the end, we really don't know if she was or not.
My father-in-law had said when he died, he became a haint. And with the different folklores of what one is, I don't know how he's going to aspire to do so yet.
Well, I learned through those kind of stories what haint blue was.
Yeah, I had to teach this man about country people.
Wow, he didn't know about haint blue.
Well, hold on.
I didn't.
Hold on, because you people have watched my demise into this horror thing for like a year now, where before I was an innocent fantasy writer. I had nothing to do with the horror.
Oh, that's adorable.
Thing. And now
we have led him down the primrose path to degradation.
No, but seriously, real funny story, kind of outside of hospital haunts. Murr down there in the corner, that guy down there, wrote a little book called Obscene Folklore, of which my company published. earlier this year. And I had to write this story in the publisher's forward for him because he did exactly what his job was. He triggered me horribly. I jumped up from reading and formatting that book.
He was so mad.
I was so mad. I was like, I'm not publishing this filth. There's no way I'm doing this. And I had to call like Susan and Heather, and I've become friends with some really big people in the horror community, and I was going to call them and be like, what's wrong with all of you? And come to find out, most people, aren't super entertained by horror. They're horrified by horror. And Mur did that exactly right. So yeah, I'm like now just going down a rabbit hole of things like Paint Blue and the Tarantula Lade's Motel, Arms. And he's a folk horror writer. And we just found out just a few minutes ago he's on the Brom reading list for obscene folk horror, or for the Stoker Awards. Yeah, I'm sorry, the Bram Stoker Awards. And I have been more triggered by all of these people in the past year. This gray on my beard and my face is you can kind of chalk it up to a lot of them. But yeah, I've learned so much that I didn't want to know.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, you zip it, Susan. You're the worst.
No, I told her just the other day, we were talking about when Mur's story triggered you, and I was like, thank you for telling him the exact same thing I had already told him. It's horror. You're supposed to feel like that.
When you reach the point when you want to throw the book across the room, the author's done their job.
Yeah. Yeah. So now it's like, now I understand trigger warnings. Never understood them before. And Mur has one specific story that really got me. So if anybody wants to read obscene folklore, the story was called The Great Hog Hunt of Coffin Mills. And there's one scene in there that just like, I did not want to associate my name with that.
And yet you did.
But 100%, 1,000,000% now.
It's a perfect story.
It's a perfect story. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. And so yeah, I know what Paint Blue is now.
And you've gotten us so off topic. All right, let's get back to it.
Still topic.
Let's come back around to our little insane asylum hospital topic. Okay, I'm gonna go back around the opposite way in the discussion. Susan, what was when you had went through the stories of this book, was there any that stood out by other authors that made you think, wow, this is the book I'm definitely glad I'm in?
Well, the only other one I've actually been able to read so far is Lex's.
Yeah, we don't let them read them. No,
they don't.
But I got to read it before everybody else.
Access to it if they want to read it, but I don't know if everybody's read it yet.
Well, dude, in our publishing company, everybody gets to it is given as an option when it's set up, so you can also see what you are put into when we do these things. So I automatically expected that others may have wanted to too and have asked. So what did you think of Lex's story then?
Oh, I love it. As I was reading
she's
it,
contractually bound to say that.
But no, actually no, because we've been friends for a really long time. And the fun part about reading her story is as I'm reading it, I'm sitting here laughing at it because I'm like, I know these people. One of these people lives on the hill behind my house. It's, I guess, being that we live in the same town, that made it a little bit better for me because I can pick up on all those little Easter egg things. And I'm like, okay, I know exactly who she based this character on. And it's the story itself is phenomenal. We argued about it a lot because she tried to tell me it wasn't, and it is.
I always hate my stories.
Yeah, well, stop it.
Well, I do. Like, there's a point in the story. I'm sorry, I'm like going off on a tangent. There's always a point you get to, whether it's in a short story, novel, novella, whatever, and you become absolutely convinced that it's so terrible that nobody will ever want to read it. Why are you in this book with all of these absolutely wonderful authors, and
Yeah.
they are slumming it having you in there? And then right about 1,000 words before you get to the end, you're like, oh, okay, well, this is going to be fine.
I
My experience
Author
anyway.
syndrome's legit.
Yeah.
I've done
okay.
the same thing.
I still feel that way. I haven't got past it, but I put my story anyway because I promised my parents, who passed away. Well, my dad passed away of cancer. My mom died because of her asthma, so I know how Josh feels in that aspect. But
Yeah, me too.
I promised them I would be published when I got older. I would find a way, and it took forever to find the right friends to be in books with, and I finally done that myself, like you guys have.
I feel like I feel like a lot of people, a lot of writers I know have similar stories, Jen. Somebody somewhere, you made a promise, you said you do it, whether it was a teacher or a family member. For me, it was my grandfather. That's why I write under the Fox name. I asked my grandfather if I could use his name if I ever wrote, and he said, absolutely, but only if it's good. So I'm trying to live up to that.
Fair enough.
And you are.
I agree.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. They're all contractually obligated to say that.
Only me.
Yeah.
Lex, did you read any of the other stories?
Well, I read Susan's as she was doing it, because Susan and I are in a writing group together. So, you know, we sit beside each other on Thursday nights, and I just read over her shoulder. So whether she wants me to or not. So I had read bits and pieces of her story as she was writing it. And of course it's good. And we always, you know, going to and from places, we always, you know, talk about what we're working on and kind of talk our way through it. That's kind of has become part of our process. I have not read any of the other stories in Hospital of Haunts yet, but I did read Heather's one of Heather's stories from her story from House of Haunts, and so I am extremely excited to read her story in Hospital of Haunts, because her story in House of Haunts is amazing. I have two. You know, when I'm looking for a book to read, you know, sometimes it's, you know, just totally for the plot. I'm a plot person. You know, something about what's going on in the story really grabs me. But on the other hand, I love a story that is beautiful to read, that has beautiful language and beautiful words. And, you know, it's very rare to find somebody that has both of those things together.
Okay.
And when you find a book that has both of those things in spades, it's something very special. And so her story in House of Haunts, it has absolutely beautiful language, and the plot is really good, but it's so creepy, and it, you know, it sent a chill down my spine, but then it also made me cry. So, you know, I'm really excited to read what she did for Hospital of Haunts.
Well, thank you.
I can
I
You're so
agree with
honestly
all of
say,
that.
to get the most out of Heather's story, going from beginning to end is the best way to get the most out of her story, I found.
Be careful.
But
Don't give
she's
spoilers.
figured out a way to make it all work together from top to bottom.
Yep.
Is all I'm saying.
Mm.
I'm just saying, guys, don't just get it and read the one author story, you know. I'm saying Heather has found a way to make it work from first page to last for you to enjoy the most with everybody's story.
Yeah.
I don't plan on giving anything away. I'm just saying how she's
No, it's a beautiful it's a beautiful recipe. She did it with House, not exactly the exact same way, but very similar. And then because she's the editor and the curator, she kind of has the right to have that last story that kind of wraps it all together. And I tell everybody all the time, and have for over a year and a half, she's hands down my favorite author. Like my very first thing I ever read of hers was a short story called Demons in her collection, Echoes of the Dead. And she had not put out Echoes yet. She let me read ahead of time because I was trying to woo her into marriage. And it literally was easily the best thing I'd read in 10 years. And I'm a voracious reader. And so this woman has chops, like real chops. I'm hanging on her coattail all the way. But she is such an emotional writer, and she'll make you cry.
I do get that a lot. People tell me my stories make them cry. I'm like, that's not, I didn't really set out to do that. I'm glad it's getting some kind of reaction. Crying was not necessarily what I was going for, but thank you.
Yeah, with MERS, I wanted to throw my computer across the room, but with Heather,
Never makes you angry.
With Heather's, I'm like, man, why'd you do that to me? I didn't need that today.
Well, I have to say that I have not read Obscene Folklore yet, Mer, but it's the next book on my TBR pile, and I can't wait because Susan described it to me, and I'm like, okay, this is exactly the kind of book I would choose for myself upon walking into a bookstore. So she said,
I
it's
love
weird,
that book.
it's scary.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I can't wait to read. I can't wait to
so
read it.
damn weird, and I love it so much.
You know what I love about that book and Mer's other book, The Country Girl's Guide to whatever I don't know what all
Hags,
it's got in
Hexes,
the
and
title
Hanks.
at this point. Is
We're changing it.
like, I love that old school mountain, like Appalachian horror too, but it's similar to that, but it's like in Oklahoma. So it's like
Right.
the country redneck version of that kind of stuff, which as an Oklahoma gal, like, I just love that. I'm like, I so know people like this and places like this, and it's just fantastic, and it's funny but disgusting and horrifying. See that way? Y'all need to read Mer's books.
Thank you.
For me, he's that way.
That way.
Yeah,
But wait,
Yeah,
that way.
Yeah,
I
that way.
I have the live up on my cell phone right
it's over there.
Wherever he is,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're backwards on the phone.
Yeah. So on the live, he's down
Yeah, he's that way.
that way.
No, he's
No.
that.
Now watch, there I am.
That way.
That way.
That way. He's hiding in the corner.
Way.
Mer's the most quiet
back to
person.
the right page. Mer, have you read any of the stories in the book, or do you have anything you want to say about the other authors that we should know?
The only story I read was I think Wesley Smith's story, and it's because we had some weird similarities that we didn't intend. So we kind of let each other read each other's stories, and it was really odd. So that's the only one that I had read so far, and most of the people that are in this one have been in the House of Haunts. There's several of them, and so they're all great writers.
I will say in this one, Heather really let me kind of have my way. I wanted as many Water Tower Hill authors in it, and my own family as well, or our family. My brother wrote his very first story ever is in this one, and he was a battlefield medic, corpsman in the military, and she really let me get away with picking people that are not only Water Tower Hill and part of our family, but real family. And so, yeah, most of everybody that was in hospital, and I doubt she's going to let me get away with it moving forward, but most of the people in Hospital of Haunts, I would say 95%, are all connected outside of just this anthology. So I love that. I loved how everybody worked together and how everybody kind of knew everybody. So that was really cool.
Joe, did you read any of the other people's stories?
I have not. So, of course, my story is my favorite. That's all I've read.
Good
It's
answer.
a great story.
Valid. That is perfectly valid.
I do
Perfectly
intend to read
valid
them all.
answer, and you've
I
given
did.
me a brand new fear.
Well, oh, yay! I did want to say something interesting about my story. Easter egg, if you will, that I put in there is a cult that is mentioned in there relates to one of my novels, Leap Year. So anybody that's read my stuff, hopefully, will see that and like enjoy that a little bit. I was sitting here
Lovely
thinking,
people
like,
to
what
us.
can I talk about? What?
Thank you, and I appreciate that. I just found out you existed whenever I got to join in on this, and I am glad I got to find out that you all exist because there's only 3 of you I knew existed beforehand.
Oh, we
And-
didn't exist. You just made us all up.
Joe lives
Well-
with us. Joe lives with me and Josh and Murr in the like Bermuda Triangle of writers in the middle of the country that nobody knows we exist because all the book stuff is on the the East Coast or the West Coast, and we're just all out here in the middle, like
I'm in Arkansas.
I guess,
so we're making it. We're building our own table out here in the middle.
trying to make the middle of the country have writers that people know who they are.
Well, that is my goal on the show, to meet new authors, find out what you write, read it, and tell everybody else, hey, people watching, please, each of these people have amazing stuff for you to read. And I even have something apparently for my smut girly fans. I didn't expect that, but thank you.
Yay! You're welcome.
We got something for the horror people. We have something for our fantasy people and our smut girlies. Yes. Please find these people and read them.
Hey, Lex, how many people are in that Thursday night writing group?
Oh my gosh. Well, okay. So it had grown to where we were rocking like 10 people. And then COVID
it was
happened
more than
and
that
we're
at
back
one
to
point.
and we're back to our core group. So it's myself and Susan and Crimson Heart and Nicole Givens Kurtz and Misty Massey. So there's 5 of us.
I know I have 3 of you under contract at Water Tower Hill, and I'm wondering if there's going to be any kind of like a pirate where they take over. What's that called?
Mutiny.
I mean,
I'm gonna have to
considering Misty writes pirates.
I was about to say Misty writes pirate fantasy. So
are they slutty too?
Ooh, they are not. They are not. She I don't know if any of you have heard of the book. It came out with Tor several years ago. It's called Mad Kestrel. And it is about a female pirate. And that is Misty's book. And she's got
cool.
The sequel to that one has came out last year, Susan? Maybe the year before last.
Kestrel's
Like
Dance has been out about a year.
Yeah. So, and if anybody is a fan of Faith Hunter, she is also from our area, and that's Misty. Misty used to be in a writing group with her. So, fun fact.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just taking notes on the mutiny and how to avoid it.
You can't avoid it. It's inevitable.
Do y'all have a name of the writing group? Because I was trying to figure out how to put Water Tower Hill brought to you by name of writing group.
We don't have a name, but maybe we should, because if we're going to start taking over places, we ought to have a name and a flag.
Hey, we already have flags. I made sure of that.
We do, but we need like a real. Well, I guess we do have a name. We're the Shenanigators.
Yeah, we do
Great
have the
name.
co-op we put together, Shenanigator Books.
Yeah.
So
okay.
So that we can do events together even when we're not together. So.
Sorry, Jen. Didn't mean to mutiny your podcast here.
Oh, you haven't mutinied. I'm enjoying this. We have a name too. We're the Owlite Society.
Ooh.
So I'm like,
see, that sounds way more mysterious.
I think somebody come up with a name for Josh and I, like a couple name, but I don't know what it would be yet. Like,
you can't do like Brad, Jelena, or anything.
Brangelina, Jennifer, and all that stuff, but I don't know what we would be. So if y'all think of a good name for that, let me know.
Everybody's trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to try it, because that means I'd have to figure out something for Josh and me, and that would be weird.
Yeah.
I guess you could be Jether.
Jether, Jether,
Together.
Together.
Yeah.
together,
Why not?
Jether, together.
Sounds like
Together,
something
together.
Whatever it is y'all come up with, we're going to be at AuthorCon on next weekend together, and so we'll put a little name tag out there or something.
Fun.
Thou rock. Have you guys written other horror stories that have helped, not helped, but in a hospital setting? It's one of my next questions.
I'm writing one currently.
You are?
I don't think I have written anything else that's in a hospital.
No. Yeah. So I because I've never been horror until I met all these people.
Weirdos.
I decided, and I write multi-genres except horror. I decided to this year start writing a horror book, and Christy Aldrich made the cover for me, and In the Shadows They Wait. And I'm actually, for the very first time, going to read the prologue in chapter 1. Only 2 people on the planet have read it, Caleb Jones and my wife. And I'm going to read it out loud at AuthorCon. Scares of Cares presents AuthorCon 4 in St. Louis next weekend. And I think she's going to film it and put it on the internet. So
It's news to me, but okay.
You're going to film it and then put it on the internet. But yeah, the prologue in chapter 1 of my very first foray into horror, it's called In the Shadows They Wait. And it takes place in a mental hospital in the 1920s.
That is so cool.
One of my short stories in my short story collection, Odds and Endings, takes place in a hospital, but just one of them.
The twins one.
Okay. And what is the name of your cat, Stuffy?
What?
Your cat Stuffy. What's its name?
Was it Bear
Oh.
Stuffy? You showed us Stuffy.
Oh,
You're getting
this.
comfy on your bed with your Stuffies.
Yes, I am.
Like a cat.
I saw it too.
There's several of them. This is Jether, and no, not really.
It is now.
It is now. Yes, it's unfortunately that's going to be the name that it's stuck with.
No.
Okay, Murr, do you have any other hospital related stories?
I don't. I've never written anything in a hospital before.
Oh, okay.
You have a hospital though, don't you? I thought the little boy named it in that one story with the mine.
Yeah,
but buy it or something.
Yeah, but I don't have anything written in the hospital though.
So Murr made up a whole Dixie. What is it? Southern Dixie. Little Dixie. It's a town. It's an area of southeast Oklahoma. He made it up, like Stephen King's Derry, Maine. He made up Little Dixie, and all of his stories take place in that area.
Okay. I've done that in my stories. I named mine after a coffee. Lex, do you have any other stories in hospitals?
I don't have in hospitals. Now, I have a story that is long out of print that took place in a funeral home. Because I've always been, I'm telling you, I've always been fascinated. If I was better with science, I would totally be a mortician because I've always been fascinated by stuff like that. So I wrote a story a very long time ago called Dollface that is about a girl that's a mortician and things ensue. And it's been a long time since I've read it, but it's been out of print for a very, very long time. And then
Lex, you have Shady Acres.
I do. Shady Acres. My next book that's actually coming out with Water Tower Hill in February is about a group of retirement community residents. And the name of as of right now, the name of the retirement community is Shady Acres. But I kept thinking that sounds so familiar. Why does that sound so familiar? And I suddenly realized that I had stolen the name of the retirement home in the Marvel universe. So I'm like,
Yes.
maybe I should change the name of it. I don't know. But anyhow, so I've been trying to think of another name. But
It can be
yeah.
anything.
Yeah, well, I wanna,
remember the nursing homes are always named after the places they're at or the owner. So it could be the name of the town and the story. Health and rehab.
There's a lot of shady stuff that goes on there. I would keep shady to change the second word to like shady places or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted it to scream retirement home, but the thing is, the Shady Acres it's a retirement community, and it's like it is the retirement community that everybody, that you wish that when you got old you got to go there, because they have it all. It's a very active community. They have tennis courts and pools and coffee shops and everything, and a shuttle that goes into town, and just all of this stuff, right? But unfortunately, the whole place is run by vampires, and so the residents have to figure out how to solve that problem. So that's so it's not really a hospital, even though there is a scene in it that they do have an infirmary that plays very heavily into the book. So I guess that counts.
Okay. I want to read that, and I want to read the mortician one, because I definitely loved everything funeral homes. Hence the show Corpse Garden Chronicles.
Well, I have an idea for a series of romance novels that all center around people that work in this retirement in this funeral home, and they all have, and just like my books for Water Tower Hill, they all have funny punny names, because they're funny. They're supposed to be comedies, and like the first one is From Bad to Worse, and so I have romance novels and they have funny names too, and I just haven't had time to write them yet. But you would like those too.
Oh, I definitely want to read those. I am looking forward to that when you finally get to it, and I also would love to invite you on Corpse Garden Chronicles to read that the story that you were talking about.
Oh, sure. So, absolutely.
Yes, please. Absolutely. That would be great. So, yeah. If we can find each other after, that would be great. I would love to be able to find you guys and invite you guys on individually later, if that would be great, for an actual author interview, or 2 or 3 of you at a time. It would be amazing. So, Susan, do you have any other stories written in hospitals?
Not in hospitals exactly. I do have quite a few that deal with different mental illnesses and things like that. And I also have a town that I've built. I've got a collection that Water Tower Hill is going to be publishing next year. Several of the stories in that center around a little fictional town in the low country of South Carolina called Monarch's Crossing. So,
I've been there. Not really.
It's in the middle of what's actually a swamp outside of Walterboro.
Wow.
So, but yeah, it's one of those places where you never really know if what's happening is paranormal or people are just crazy.
I love that. I like you, Jen. I find people I really like, and they write, and I like their books, so they all work for Water Tower Hill now. So.
Jeez, Joe, come on.
Patty has done that with us.
No, we're really excited.
Moral of the story is Josh is an author hoarder.
I am. I hoard my treasure. If I was Patty, my treasure would be my authors. Yeah.
That is awesome.
I have a very convincing argument that authors are some of the most. I think it's the most difficult creative outlet. I can't paint or make music or write music, but you go out there in the streets and ask people if they feel like they can write a book, 99% of people will say no. So everybody wants to, not everybody can. And I think it takes a level of intelligence and understanding the world and people to be good at it. And so I like clever things, and every author that I collect are clever. So
that sounds terrible. Let's not say you're collecting authors.
Oh, I'm collecting authors.
Yeah, it sounds like you have them tied up in your basement.
Yeah. I let him out for
Are you in
podcast.
his basement?
Well,
I'm
that's
in the
good.
closet.
I bought
I'm
Mur
hiding in his closet. But anyway, no, actually, I'm hiding in my closet, which is totally different. But okay, guys, I have 3 kids and 2 grown men in my house at this time. It is quieter in here than anywhere else in my house. Hence why I'm hiding. But okay, I think one of the biggest questions, since I have you all here, any character in any story you have published, which one would you like to go on a coffee date with and just sit down and talk with them? I know I've asked Heather and Josh this, and if they have different characters they'd like to say this time, they can. But Susan,
I'm not sure I want to get that close to any of my characters. They're all a little crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
that would be a good assessment.
I don't know. Probably the caterpillar from the first book in my Wonderland series. He's like made entirely of magic and is very odd. I don't know. He's one of my favorites though, because it's just I love that book. I love that universe. I love being able to play with other people's property and
You
being
have a
able to
Wonderland
rework.
series?
Do what?
You have a Wonderland series? I need to know the name of the first book.
The first book is called In Spades. It's the first of 4. And in that first, she's essentially the new Alice is trying to rebuild the shattered kingdom of Wonderland, and everybody's trying to kill her while she's doing it. So it's exciting, and like I said, all those characters are crazy.
Under contract by Water Tower Hill.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
I love that book too, by the way. The cover of that book is what got Susan came to my attention. Over a year and a half now.
God. Yeah, it's been a minute, hasn't it?
Yeah, because I was looking for somebody to do the sigil, and you had the clock on In Spades. And I just put out a call for artists, and somebody recommended you, and I looked at your book cover and hit you up, and now she runs all the art for Water Tower Hill.
It's crazy how that happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great book. It's a great book, Jen. Cool. You got to get it.
Okay. I'm putting the link in my readers group so I can find it later. And I figure as I find out what books you guys like, I will continue to put them in there. But anyway, okay, Lex, do you have a character in?
See, this is a dangerous question to ask somebody that's a romance novelist.
Yeah.
Let's see. Probably. Well, I would love to sit down with the main character of From Bad to Worse, because he's totally based on my dad, and From Bad to Worse was my grief book. My dad passed away, and shortly after that I started writing From Bad to Worse, because my dad's experience at the end of his life was very similar to the main character George's experience, but George's turns out a lot better. Anyhow, so yeah, I would love to sit down with George Waterman and just have a conversation with him, because I miss having conversations with my dad. As for stuff in my romance, probably my favorite of my romance main characters that I would want to sit down with, I have a series called Phoenix Rising, and the main character of those books is he's a genetically engineered spy, and his name is Cage St. John, and he has undergone a scientific experiment where he can shapeshift into pretty much any sort of thing that he can see. Somebody described him as manimal, and I had not thought about that before, and it kind of ruined the book for me. But he's extremely cool, and he's a smart ass, and he's very sexy in English, and so I would totally want to sit down and have dinner with him.
That dude. Okay, I have more stuff to figure out right now. Amazon is being mean and not even letting me find your name, and I'm like, why are we being mean?
Well, it's because it's probably my romance is under Alexandra Christian. And you can find all my books at alexandrachristian.com.
alexandrachristian.com. Oh, okay.
Alexandra, yes.
That would be helpful. Alexander Christian. That will help. I'll put those later. Myrrh. Okay, I love your name. I don't know what it's short for. Merlin, murder, anything.
It's a nickname. It's a nickname. My name's really John, but it's a nickname.
It's short for John.
Short for John.
John.
Yeah, for sure. You said for a coffee date?
Okay. Yeah, any character that you have published.
I think for a coffee date, the most interesting character would probably be the heroine from my horror western, Trade Your Coffin for a Gun. Her name's Sugar Bava, and she's a gunslinging witch. She's pretty horrible.
Oh,
She's
wow.
I think whenever I was writing it, she's basically I think she's my dark side breathed to life. So it would be like getting to meet my own dark side. So I don't know, that could be kind of a weird potentially dangerous meeting. But as far as hanging out, I think the most fun would be though to hang out with the kids from my the Country Girl's Guide to Hexes and Haints, my my coming of age horror novel I just published a couple of years ago. Go hang out with them and play video games. It takes place in the 80s, so that'd be kind of cool to just hang out in that time period. It's based on like a lot of my friends and stuff.
That time period.
So yeah, that would be what I'd probably do. I'd probably have to split between those two.
That is awesome. Joe, what character would you choose?
Probably, I mean, if it was a coffee date, I guess it's supposed to be romantic or something.
No, I've had coffee dates with people. Well, they weren't exactly dates. I've went out to coffee with people and we talked about horror novels. And
well, then,
the only
then
thing
that makes
was
this
it
easy.
was a book trade. So anything you want, it could be.
Okay, well, I would probably pick Gavin from Leap Year. Well, not to give too much away about the book, but he only ages 1 day for every, or 1 year for every 4 years because he was born in leap year. And there's magic involved. But the best thing is he has the ability to say he's in Paris, Texas. He can open up a door anywhere in Paris, Texas, walk through and be in Paris, France, or any other Paris. And I'd get to go lots of places and I wouldn't have to pay for a plane ticket. So, of course, that would be the perfect coffee date. I have another character.
Would be interesting.
I have another character that apparently I like teleporting because the other character, Emily from the Small Things trilogy, has the ability to teleport, but she can only teleport to places that she's been. So, Gavin really is the better choice on that. You can go to a Starbucks in Rogers, Arkansas, and go to a Starbucks or come out to Starbucks in Chicago.
But still Starbucks, because why would you go anywhere else?
Well, I don't even go to Starbucks. I don't know why I chose that.
We were talking about coffee, and
and I don't drink coffee, so.
Coffee. Well, you didn't have to order coffee. You could have ordered any tea or water or juice. But
that is true.
It's just unimmaculate thought.
Well, Gavin and I could go and drink coffee, or I drink water and he can have coffee. So.
Yeah, get a cake on a stick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cake on a stick sounds great. Anyway, did you guys have different characters you wanted to suggest this time?
You got any different characters this time?
Yeah, I actually thought of an answer before we even came on here because I knew you would ask that. I don't have somebody I want to have coffee with. I have characters I want to apologize to. It was brought to my attention.
Yes, it was. I know exactly what you're going to say.
It was brought to my attention this week in the Discord chat on Water Tower Hill that I create characters. They're only there to keep the plot moving. They're basically just one chapter characters. And I make you fall in love with them, and then I kill them at the end of the chapter. And I didn't know I did this until I went back through my book, and there are like a solid 7 to 10 characters that I only use them as to show the scene from a different perspective, right? I don't do it from my protagonist perspective always. Like this last book I wrote was a Western, and there's an old prospector named Sam Tennyson and his mule Betty. And I didn't think about Sam and Betty at all. I didn't think about them at all. I just wrote them into a bigger scene, and then I killed them. And well, Betty didn't die, but Sam died, and I went on with my day. And apparently, that upsets people.
It upset your wife.
I have written a good 10 characters I want to apologize to.
And the gal in
Yeah, Sophie
that makes the biscuits.
Makes the biscuits.
She's just happy to be alone and living her life, and then she gets murdered.
Yeah, and then
That's not fair.
There's a guy that's a mayor of a small town in Utah, and he kind of got like gentrified into the position. His father was somebody, and his brother was somebody, and he's walking a dog, and he was a failure his whole life, and at the end, he got sniped. And his last thought was the dog didn't go to the bathroom, so he failed at the end. And I didn't know I write these characters, but apparently I have a lot to apologize for.
Well, I killed a cat in my first novel, Small Things, and I've never lived that down.
Yeah, don't kill Anna. I don't kill Anna.
But he might just come back to life later. So.
But yeah, that was my answer to your. And I'll try to have another answer the next time.
Yeah, to write more characters so we can
Yeah.
every time we come on here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if I have new authors, I like to ask that question. Now, if you've been on before, I want to go through your entire list of interviews and find questions you haven't been asked before. And then I'm going to ask different
His
questions.
clothes are done in the dryer.
Apparently the new dryer is possessed. It's like the 8th time the damn thing's gone off, and it's turned off and on by itself every time.
Yes.
Oh,
Love it.
the old man in your house. It's the old
Hungry
man in your
ghost.
house, Susan.
I'm just gonna start watching stuff behind you and let you know if it moves.
Mostly it's Susan's screen.
Like did
It wouldn't be the
that
first
lamp
time.
just move? Pretty sure that lamp just moved.
Do you have a new one, Heather?
I don't know if I have a new one. I mean, if I'm feeling saucy, I'd probably like to hang out with Nurse Eleanor from Hospital of Hans.
She's quite attractive.
And
Well, tell her why I
she's
say
quite
that.
attractive because in the limited edition swag box you can order of Hospital of Hans, you get a signed old school photograph of Nurse Eleanor, and
That's Murr's wife.
Nurse
made.
Eleanor is my face, and Murr's wife Annie does some sort of photographic magic where she can make you look like somebody from some other time period or whatever. And she took pictures of me and morphed them into this 1840s, 1850s nurse. So it's me as an old timey nurse. And then
With homicidal tendencies.
well, yes, she's just a mercy killer. So yeah, she's kind of my dark side, I guess. But then if I wanted to be like not the dark side, I think I'd like to hang out with these new characters that I'm actually just forming in my head for my new series. My whole family of witches that lived in the Ozarks in like this magical farmhouse in this holler down in Missouri in the Ozark Mountains.
Yeah, she has a 14-book series outlined now, and all the titles are amazing. They all form a spell, and the first one is say it.
What is it?
It's salt, rue, and no.
It's what?
No, you tell them.
Salt, sage, yarrow, rue.
Yeah. So
yeah,
it's kind of like Mayfair witches if they
Beautiful
live in the
herbs.
Ozark.
It's yeah, but that's a whole family
Those are
of witches, and I think I'd like to go hang out at their farmhouse with them for a while.
Well, who wouldn't want to do that?
What's their last name?
that sounds amazing.
Well,
Do all the titles have herbs?
no, but all the titles are like a forward thing, like Salt, Sage, Yarrow, Rue. And when you put all 14 titles together, it all rhymes and it makes like a spell it's like all the things that this main character has had to learn about and go through to become the witch that she's supposed to be.
Yeah, so tell them the second title. Salt, Sage, Yarrow, Rue. It's the trees.
Oak, ash, willow, yew.
Yeah.
Those are all trees. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. That is.
I
awesome.
apologize. My dog is gonna make an appearance just any second.
Oh, that's okay.
Hi, George.
We don't mind
jumping up here.
living, breathing animals or stuffed ones. We love them all on this show. The entire network. We love all the animals.
Yeah.
Well, now we have a jether.
Yeah.
Okay. I have 1.5 million other questions, but I know I usually keep these to like an hour and a half. So my last question is, do you guys have a book that you have written or a short story that you wish other people would read more and go to find you? Let's start with Joe.
Yeah. Me. Well, yeah, I wish everybody would read everything I've ever written, but that probably won't ever happen. But the book I mentioned earlier, Leap Year, I think that's probably my best book I've written to this day, to date, and it has not got quite as much attention as I wanted it to. So, yeah, everybody go out and get that right now.
Right now,
Yes,
this
it's
second.
on my list of books to get.
Yay!
Murr.
Then I've accomplished my mission. And I write mostly. Oh, I did want to say I'm sorry. Oh, what was that? A dryer?
Yeah, it keeps. Okay, what type of books do you write mostly about?
I mostly write modern fantasy with a tinge of horror. Some people say it's horror. I don't know if it's horror or not. I write a little bit of everything. So.
Okay, the only reason I'm asking this is some authors are like solely LGBTQ authors. Some of them do a mix. Do you do a mix, or do you just write whatever you feel like at that point?
I write whatever I want.
Or
I mean, I think
there is no relationship in this book.
In Leap Year? Yeah, there's
I mean, like in general.
In general, I write a little of everything. I have heterosexual relationships in the books. I have homosexual relationships. Whatever seems appropriate, if that's what you're asking me.
Awesome.
I'm sorry, it cut out for a second, so I didn't hear. So I had to kind of piece together what you're asking.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, it wasn't your fault.
Bird,
I blame Jether.
Book other people. Okay, let's blame Jether. Murr, what book do you want people to read more?
Probably my last book, The Country Girl's Guide to Hexes and Haints, but they're going to get their chance. I mean, besides I've seen Folklore that's already out, but it's for the one that I feel like it got out there and it just kind of, it got hyped and hyped and hyped, and then it just kind of just got dropped. But it's going to get its chance again. So, because we're going to re-release it. So, if you want to go.
Yeah, we can't wait to do that. I did ask him this time around if we could change the title, because the Country Girls Guides to Hexes and Haints, it just feels like it's missing one H word. So what did we come up with? The Country Girls Guides to Hexes,
Hags, and Haints. Yeah. And I had to knock about, when I published it to the other publisher, I had to knock about, I think, 60,000 words.
Oh, wow.
Off of it, just for, it wasn't for the fact that it wasn't because of the content was bad. It's just that it was too expensive to print it.
Yeah, he sent me the entire manuscript, and it's like 160,000 words.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah, but you know what? If Brandon Sanderson can publish a 450,000 word and it sells for $19.99, we'll do it.
If Brandon, the weird thing is, Brandon Sutterson actually got my kid to sit down and read something this thick, and I was confused.
Yeah.
The one I keep talking about, Cassie, the majestic fish. But okay, Lex.
Cool.
It doesn't matter which name it's in under. What book do you want people to read more of? And if it's under Alexander, please say that.
Okay. Well, considering I haven't published a novel under Lex yet, I guess it'll have to
Could
be
be a
under
short
Alexander.
story.
Well, yeah. Under Alexandra Christian, I wish that more people would read my completely non-paranormal, fluffy, Hallmark Channel-y romance called Falling into Rhythm. I love that book. It is one of those books that it just flowed. It's one of the fastest books I've ever written. It's just a happy book, very low stakes. You can put your brain on the table and just enjoy it. And for some reason, I cannot give that book away, and I don't understand it. But it's a fun book. I love it. And I don't normally like contemporary romance. I mean, for myself, I don't normally like it. It was just kind of a thought out of nowhere, and I love that book. I don't understand why I can't.
I'll read it.
Yeah, well, you should totally read it. It's a great book.
Well, I'm not saying I take rights over it. I'm just saying I'm going to find it and look at it. It's going to be awesome.
Well, I hope so. I hope so. Well, I was describing it to somebody at a book signing over the weekend. They're like, "Oh my God, that sounds like a movie that could be on the Hallmark Channel." I'm like, "I know, right?"
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I wish more people were into that. As for like, I wrote a story in an anthology called Lawless Lands, and it is called The Men with No Faces. And it's the first short story that I've written in a while that I was like, okay, so yeah, maybe I can write horror, because I think the story is very scary. It's very eldritch, but it's also very weird Western, and it has the heroine of the story is older, like as in like in her 60s, older, and she's like a gunslinger, and she's amazing. And I kind of wish that more people would read that.
That sounds awesome. Definitely. What about you, Susan?
Probably In Spades. I love that book. It took me 5 years to figure out what I was doing and write the whole thing, and it's kind of a huge book, but it's one of my favorite things that I've ever written. And it just,
okay.
I don't know if I can get people to pick it up and look at it. Generally, they're going to buy it, but getting people to pick it up and look at it seems to be the problem.
Okay.
Same here.
So, but I do. I
that
love
is
that
my
book.
goal with the show.
It's
such
a weird thing. And yeah, by the way, I everybody needs to read Falling into Rhythm too, because what she didn't tell you is that the entire time she was writing it, I was reading it over her shoulder and pestering her to write faster, because it is a really good book.
It's just very fluffy. It's very fluffy.
It's so good.
Sometimes you just like fluffy though. That's all right.
You know? Sometimes you need a fluffy book.
I like that.
And I also wrote it right in the middle of, at the height of the dystopian fiction thing. I think that probably has a lot to do with it too.
Heather, do you have one that you want others to read?
I do. I would really, really like people to read this one. Ta-da! This is
Okay, let me figure out how to bring you up.
Oh wow, it's very large there. Is it backwards? Oh, I hope not. So this is my my latest collection, Echoes of the Dead. It came out earlier this year, and it is psychological grief horror. And I think some of the best things I've ever written. The story Josh was talking about, like he says, is the best thing he's read in forever is in here. And it's like I wrote these stories over this period of my life where I was going through a lot of life changes. My mother died. I got a divorce, and I met a new man, married him. because like the first story in this I wrote when my mom was sick, and then the last story I didn't write till a couple of years later, shortly after we got married. So like I was in a very weird emotional place while I was writing these, and it really comes out. Like I said earlier, usually people tell me my writing makes them cry, which I don't mean to do, but I actually cried while writing several of these. But they are scary. They're ghost stories. They're stories of each story is someone who is haunted by someone they know has died, and they're haunted by it in different ways, either actual supernatural hauntings or just sort of internal psychological hauntings. But anyway, it's a really good book. Clay McLeod Chapman said, "I don't know if the rest of the world is ready for this one." So I thought that was high praise. It's on the book right there.
Yeah.
So that's my
That
book.
is cool.
Like people to read.
My turn.
Your turn.
I have found it. Yes, Josh, please tell us.
Well, all my writing outside of Water Tower Hill is built on a platform that started with a single book that I wrote it for my kids 5 years ago. I called it my suicide note to my children because that's what it was going to be. But after I wrote the end, my whole life changed, and I've written 6 books since then. But it's this one right here. I Won't Be Shaken. Cover done by the lovely Susan Rhodey. There it is. I Won't Be Shaken. Story of overcoming the odds. It's my own story. It's my autobiography. I've had a weird life, and then I feel like if people will read that one and get into it, they'll read all the ones after it. So, like I said, everything's just kind of built on that platform. And then I've gone on to write the Mission series. That's doing pretty well. So
that is awesome. Okay, guys. We've reached our hour and a half point, and my one question of the audience is, will you please go find all of our stuff and check it out and read it? I am very grateful to be able to be in this chat room with these amazing people and see what they have written. And I hope you guys read their stuff and see why Josh and Heather have brought them together and why they are together. They have made a world. They have not only made multiple worlds together, they have also made our world better by having their books in the world, whether they're published in under their press or they have been previously published and have come together with them recently. It doesn't matter. Their books make the world better. So I'm going to go around and ask you all where you'd like to be found. Myrrh, where would you like people to find you?
Just find me on Facebook. All my links are on there to Twitter, and also on the Water Tower Hill page. All my links are on there as well.
Okay. Lex?
My website is alexandrachristian.com, and links to all of my social media are there. I'm on Facebook. I don't do X, but I have started doing Threads, which I think is an Instagram thing. I also do TikTok from time to time as well, as at Lexi C Writes.
That is cool. Susan, where would you like people to find you?
My website is shrotty.com. All of my social media is there. I'm usually lurking around on Facebook. Sometimes I lurk on TikTok, sometimes on Instagram, but probably Facebook is the best place to find me.
Okay. Joe, where would you like people to find you?
Like everybody else has said, my website's joederowan.com. I have that weird French last name, so make sure you spell it right. Also, I'm on Facebook way too much, like so much. So anybody can find me on there. Or you can find me on Amazon.
And I have done that, so I know you guys can too.
Hey.
Josh and Heather, where would you like people to find you guys?
We live at watertowerhill.com. All of the Water Tower Hill authors, I think there's 30 of them now, are all on watertowerhill.com. We link everybody else's social media and websites and everything from there. So we use it as kind of a central place for all of us. I do have my own website like everybody else, but we do everything through watertowerhill.com now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just on there with him, so
Actually, we're all on there with you.
we're always together.
Jether can be found at watertowerhill.com. Watertowerhill.com.
Okay. Thank you all for being here. And if you'd like to find me, I'm at the usual places: Fake Horror Publishing, Owl Light Network, Friday with the Library in the Blue Box, and Jennifer Elliott, the author page. I appreciate all of you for being here, and I hope you all have a blessed night. Bye.
Thanks. You too.
Greetings and shabebans. We are the Retro Reductibus Cephala Podcast, a long-form bi-weekly show that celebrates all the things that made growing up awesome.
Well, that sounds good, but I don't know what all those words mean.
I think what Parasite Steve's trying to say is that on Retro Reductibus, we explore a range of retro goodness, from toys, video games, and movies, to cartoons, and even snacks and school lunches.
Oh. And we do it all with a positive spin, a slew of killer guests, and some very adult language.
And you know what else is cool?
No.
This crazy show is part of the Daughrity Podcast Network with new episodes every Tentacle Tuesday.
What's that?
And if waiting 2 weeks for a new episode gives you a sad, know that we drop bonus episodes all the time, like the off-format Crow's Nest and an interview series we call The Brig.
You can listen to Retro Reductibus on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any app that's cool enough to carry the only show that celebrates all the things that make growing up awesome.